To be or not to be. Philosophical implications of sustainability and grievance. See, in modern English, Hamlet was questioning whether it is more logical for him to resist the pressures and threats against him in order to preserve his existence, or if the unknown of death is more feasible for his legacy, trading the pain and suffering for the possibility of something greater, to be saved or not to be saved. Theological contemplations of being bound in the flesh or abiding in the spiritual freedom that we were all promised if, and only if, we all submit to conviction, works of the Holy Spirit that allows a person to see himself through the eyes of God, guilty, defiled, and totally unable to save himself. See, now in reference to that definition, it is clear to me that we all need to call on Dr. Jesus and ask for a new prescription, because in order to see ourselves through the eyes of Christ, we have to look through the lens of conviction, vision, and live life with complete precision and allow God to make a slight excision over our hearts. He has to cut away all the hurt and cut away all the pain, do away with the backsliding. Remember, it was for our sins that the Lamb was slain. But nah, see, that's not how we do. How we do is we sin and we sin time after time after time. We still put a command on all of God's blessings. We live how we want to live and expect no trials and testings. We give how we want to give and put a demand on financial progression. So now I'm confused, because it's the ones who know the book who don't follow the rules. It's like we want to be fixed, but we don't utilize the tools. We don't listen to the Holy Spirit, but we always want to be used. I pity the fool, but I ain't Mr. T. And I only pity the fool who confuses the life of bondage with how it feels to truthfully be set free. And for a long time, that fool was me. See, it's that real heavy feeling that you get when you know you're doing something wrong. Yeah, that's conviction. But it's crazy, because all we want to do is live how the world does. And then we wonder why nobody really wants to follow us. But it's because our words don't match our actions like karate flicks. And we're steady trying to build a temple on a foundation of sticks. We dress up our sin real nice to suit our image, just so we could fit in. And it's crazy, because God had to convict his son with conviction when conviction was really meant to convict us, lock us up. We filter the picture with the proper touch, but not too much, because I still got to seem cool to my friends just enough, like as long as I can go to church and shout and still go out to the party and drink with them, and they still won't call my bluff. See, we've all become too far concerned with who goes harder, when in reality, without conviction, our destination will only get harder. So I came here to just pierce your heart, that the fire of God be reignited in you so that you don't have to live in it. Trust me, I'm quite sure it's hard to breathe in hell, but no matter how hard you try, there's no way out, so you'll just be waiting to exhale. We break the law of Christ time after time after time, like repeated offenders, and then we stand before the judge crying out, Lord Father, please defend us. So my only question is, why does it take for us to get the worst sentence, receive grace, and misdemeanor results in order for us to fall on knees and pray out, Father, we ask you to forgive us. Forgive us for living an intentionally sinful life and subsequently falsely portraying what it truthfully means to be a Christian. We ask you now, Father, that you will forgive us, because we know that your word says that light and darkness have no thing in common, but we've created this gray area of confusion in this world in which people have submitted to, in which people have died and gone to hell for the misconception that we have created. We ask you now, Father, don't forgive us, Father, for we know not what we've done. No, Father, convict us, for we know exactly what it is that we have done. Conviction.
Ooh, I can't even snap. I just gotta raise my hand. Wow. If you're online, show us some heart. Y'all, let us see the heart. Let us see the thumbs up. Wow. Listen, go right now where you are and follow Charles Robinson Sweet. Yes. You will be hearing that name. Wow. You will be hearing that name. That was extremely powerful. We opened up the show tonight with some spoken word. Conviction. My God. That was amazing. Yes, thank you so much. Woo. Thank you so much. Wow. watching us, listen, welcome to All Things Women Talk Show, Conversations on Campus. We want to give you an opportunity to tell us where you are viewing from. What state are you in? Are you joining us for the first time? If so, we welcome you. We have an exciting show for you tonight. We have our panel guests from a couple of shows ago, and they are back to interview my husband and I. This is my husband, Ronald Bell. I'm not calling you Pastor Ron tonight. He's Ronald Bell. And we're here to just keep it real tonight about love, relationships, marriage. And listen, we want you to be able to give your comments. We want you to ask your questions. I've already received some inbox questions today. So hopefully we can spread light or shed light on something that you have confusion about. We want to help give you some strategy for your relationships, for your future marriages. And we just understand that it's important to have a male and a female perspective when we talk about these things. And so I'm leaning on my husband tonight. He is full of wisdom. He is the pastor of the Arise Church in Wilmington, Delaware. Check us out, 2200 Baynard Boulevard. And guess what? We start around noon every Sunday. So you get a chance to wear your jeans. Wear your jeans and your t-shirt, because that's what we do. And we just come and worship God. So again, welcome to the show. We're going to jump right on into the conversation. So we are here to talk about marriage, love, relationships tonight. And I want to start the conversation asking my husband, what is marriage? What is marriage? Before we do that, real quick, we have Tish Williams of Sadiddy Hippie live painting tonight. So again, we invite you to give us questions, comments, give us hearts, thumbs up as we go along. Let us know that we're saying something that you agree with or something that's touching your heart tonight. So what is marriage? Where does it come from? How did it get started?
That's an interesting question. Number one, marriage is a mystery. The Bible says that. The Bible says that. Marriage is a mystery. But then number two, it's a God thing. But it's an interesting dynamic. You look at Genesis 1, God creates the heavens and the earth and all this kind of stuff. He creates Adam. And God is checking Adam out after he's created everything. And God notices that Adam looks all sad-faced. Adam he ain't happy with the animals. He ain't happy with the sun, the moon. Just, Adam got this, his decorum says something's wrong. And so, without question, God lulls Adam to sleep in the text. And he pulls from a rib from Adam. And out of the rib he creates Eve. Eve is fully formed. And at the point of her fully formation, God awakes Adam and presents Eve to Adam. And the text says Adam begins to speak. And Adam says, for this cause shall a man leave husband, mother and father, and cleave to his wife. And so the first time we see this idea of wife, husband and wife, we see it in the garden with Adam and Eve. And we know through etymology, the word husband is an agricultural term. It means, to deal with the herbs and the earth, the land, that kind of thing. And so, it is God who sets Adam in purpose, and Eden, to minister, in terms of the land. And so here we see husband and we see wife in activation at the same time, in Genesis 2. And so you would see that as the formation of what we understand as marriage.
Wow. Okay.
You
broke it down. That's not something you hear every day. And again, we talked about this on the last show, but we have so many images of marriage, and a lot of times we just really don't know what it means. We just know that we want to put the suit on and put the dress on. And, we want to think about who's going to be in the bridal party, and we think about all these different things, and we see marriages around us that don't last. And so, again, our hope today is that we can share some wisdom on how to make it last and really what it is, what it's all about. So before we get into our discussion, I want my panelists to be able to introduce themselves and tell the audience who may not know you guys yet who you are, where you're from. And I know everybody on the panel is single, so we're excited to get the questions. I'm gonna let my poet of the evening begin.
Charles Robinson Sneed. I'm a native of Delaware from Laurel, Sussex County, 24 years old, currently in graduate school at Eastern University. I work at Delaware State University as an admissions counselor, so if any parents are watching, you have high school or looking to get into college, you know,
Yes, sir.
I'm your guy. I'm your guy. So yeah, I do spoken word and poetry, and that's pretty much. I'm single. I think last time I said I was having a single, right? But you know, some things have changed.
You know, he writes love letters to his future wife.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so awesome.
So,
I love it.
I'm praying for my
Do it,
future wife.
Gina. Awaken these Adams.
Yes.
We don't say that. Awaken these Adams. Awaken them.
It's only been 2 weeks, guys, but I'm just praying for my future wife.
That was 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
It was 2 weeks ago. He's already ready.
He was happily single 2 weeks ago.
yeah, I think like a week ago, God changed my heart. Like a week ago, He changed my heart. So.
You know what? My prayers are being answered. This is what I wanted to happen. All right, Jason.
Oh, my goodness. My name is Jason Villas. I currently live in downtown Wilmington. I'm originally from the Bronx. I currently own a yoga company called Fly Yogi, where we provide mindfulness, meditation, and yoga practice for kids in schools, different community centers, as well as corporate environments. I also run a couple of nonprofits, Wilmington Placemakers Incorporated, where we manage projects like the Artist Ave Station and Wilmington Green Box, trying to fight the food access issue here in the city and urban environments in Wilmington. And that's just a little bit some stuff on it.
Awesome.
I
know you want to shout out Morgan State. Come on, this is your opportunity.
No, listen. I am Ronald Bell, Jr., and I'm the husband of the phenomenal, vivacious, fantastic, spectacular, effervescent, amazing, beautiful, wonderful Dr. Eboni Bell. And I'm proud just to be that. Amen.
Oh my God.
That's how you do it.
And I am the wife of Reverend, soon to be doctor, pastor, teacher, philosopher, poet, musician, saxophone player, guitar player. I'm about to come up, Ronald Bell Jr. I am. No, but I love my husband, and he's an amazing guy. And I tell the church this all the time. I just want to make his dreams come true. That's it. That's why I'm here. Yep. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, y'all.
Okay, I'm a Jeez. Wow. So, my name is Kenita Benson. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, raised in Philadelphia. I'm an independent gospel recording artist and multinational women's advocate. I'm very passionate about issues that impact women globally, and recently started an advocacy campaign for internally displaced young women in Kenya, East Africa. And I'm also a cross-cultural missionary. I'm very passionate about what I believe God placed us here to do, and that's tell people about Him. And so that's pretty much what guides my life is music, ministry, and missions.
Awesome. Music, ministry, missions.
All right, so I'm gonna keep mine short. My name is Taylor Coleman. Born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware. Since a few people shout out colleges, Xavier University of Louisiana, in New Orleans, Louisiana. But I am an advocate of justice. So eventually, I want to start a nonprofit law firm. My specific interests are in criminal defense and civil rights.
Hi everybody, I'm Rose. I am from the lovely state of New Jersey. Currently a hawk residing in a hornet world. So I work at Dell State. I'm an educator at heart, so I love developing young people. So my passion is for college students and allowing them to grow and develop into awesome world leaders. I'm also a member of the Best Learning Life, which takes up a lot of my time. Delta Sigma thing. But yeah, I'm just passionate about life and living it to the best of my ability, while being a lover of Jesus Christ.
Yes, girl. Well, listen, y'all gotta give us the questions. We're ready to answer any question. Audience,
I'm excited.
listen, if you have questions, type them in. We're looking at them.
Can I go back real quick?
Absolutely.
So real quick, just want to go back to this idea of husband and wife, and marriage that we see in Genesis 1 and 2. Because as I was saying it, I'm just kind of thinking through some stuff. One thing is that Adam never said a word until he saw Eve, right? So God creates everything. Adam is silent. He sees Eve. Now Adam speaks. So we know marriage does something. We know connection, relationship does something in terms of allowing us to be able to speak, to see more, say more than we did before. The other thing is that God did not present Eve to Adam until she was fully formed, right? It wasn't like God, took Adam's rib out. Well, Adam, I'm saying, here's a rib, wait on it. In a couple of years, it'll be some more stuff, right? God waited, and left Adam null until Eve was fully formed in order to be presented. Number 3, it was God who presented Eve to Adam, right? It was not. It wasn't because Eve. It was God who did. It wasn't because Eve was on the right treadmill. It wasn't because Adam graduated from the right school. You know what I'm saying? It was a God moment, right? And I think a lot of times we try to manipulate something or force something,
Right.
or try to make something happen.
Imagine it.
You imagine something. And the reality is, if we just let God do God's thing, in God's time, and if we're obedient to the will of God, which 1 tells a man to go to sleep, and 2 tells a woman to be formed, then we're able to be fully present in what God has created, and that thing is what you call marriage. So there cannot be a marriage without there first being a wife who is formed by God and a man who hears from God, right? And those 2 things together create what we understand to be holy natural.
Well, I'm so glad.
You gotta write that
I can
down.
play this
One
whole
day
thing.
You gotta take that.
Yes.
So what does that look like practically? Like, how do you know you're ready for marriage?
Yeah, that's a great question. And a great question. 2 things. One, that's great because if we look at the first piece, and let's separate it out. So we look at the first piece, and we've got Adam, who must be able to hear from God, right? Because if Adam don't hear from God, Adam don't go to sleep. If Adam don't go to sleep, God can't take the rib out.
And break that down. Hear from God. What does that mean to a person who doesn't know?
Yeah. So in order to hear from God, you got to have a relationship with God, right? And so it's a big thing, right? We struggle with. I'm sorry, I'm not used to sit. We struggle. The preacher walk around. This is weird. Have you talk and sit? I don't know, right? But we struggle with this idea of identity, always trying to figure out who we are, right? Who am I? That kind of thing. We go through all kinds of processes, trying to rationalize and whatever. But we find out in Genesis 1 where God says, I created you in my image, right? God reaches in the dirt and creates Adam, right? Breathes into Adam breath of life. So if God creates Adam in God's image, then Adam can no more know who he is apart from the image of God, right? And so who I am is a direct correlation with who God is. And so if I don't have a relationship with God, I can't really know who I am. And so part of the relationship is an understanding of my own divinity. That is latent inside of me just by the fact of how I was made. And so if that piece is not straight, then I can't hear from God. And if I can't hear from God, then I can't be laid back. Right? Part of man is this dogged strength to want to attack, to want to go, to want to do, blah. Right? So I gotta be able to let that thing ease, to be able to hear from God, to be able to be still long enough for God to actually do some real work.
So is the go to sleep part the be still enough so I can work on you? How does that translate?
Yeah. Well, so it's partly be still. It's secondly renew your own relationship with God. It's thirdly check your own image and identity. Right. So it's I need to get this stuff straight first. before God can pull a rig and create something.
Yeah.
Because watch this. If I don't have this stuff straight, and then God pulls what's inside of me,
Wow.
Reproduce
Oh,
that.
wow.
and reproduces that,
Wow.
and that becomes my wife. Now I'm Bobby and she with me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we wonder why I ain't working out right.
Right.
We both in the,
Right.
So I gotta be in a space where I'm healthy enough that God can reproduce from what's inside of me to create the wife I need.
And is that why people attract certain people to their lives? Because like you attract, in my opinion, I mean I could just think about a couple of relationships. You know, you attract what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
We can disagree.
Okay.
In front of people.
Okay. I wanted to check. Yes and no. You attract what you attract. Most times it's not what you are. Usually it's the opposite of who you are.
Wow.
So it is the positive that attracts the negative, not the positive that attracts the positive.
Right.
So what happens is you're probably the best person in your circle. You're the leader in your circle. You're the captain in your circle. And everybody around you is trying to scratch off of you. You know what I'm saying? Because they're attracted to what you have. It takes an inner force to be able to recognize that's an illegitimate relationship. And I need to go beyond that. But without doing that self-work, you will continue to attract. And so you attract the opposite over and over. And so you wonder why you're a beautiful cake, but all these flies are around you. Because you're in the wrong space. You're in a space where trash is ahead. You're a great cake. You're a wonderful cake. You my jerk chicken. You 3 hours marinated. You know what I'm saying?
No.
But you in a trash heap. So what you expect to get nothing but you know what I'm saying? So it takes this inner force beyond to pull you out from that, to put you in a position where you can be respected and appreciated for what's really inside of you.
Yeah.
And then you attract what you attract.
Yeah, and I can attest to that in terms of speaking from a life standpoint. I can remember the times when I wasn't, and I'm not saying that I'm 100% whole today, but I remember the times where I was less whole and I accepted things in relationships that I just can't even believe today. You know, because that's just where I was. And again, my eyes weren't open to the fact that I deserve better than this. You know, that God had more for me. But again, it was that self-reflection and that relationship with God that I had to really establish, that intimacy with Him, to be able to see. I always say, like, if you can look in God's face, get close enough to Him to see Him, that's when you see you. Because you're made in His image and His likeness. But until you do that, you have no clue who you are. So you'll attract things, you know, based on that. Does that make sense? That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
That's good.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good.
So I have a random question. The practical dating aspect of that. So a guy has to hear from God. A woman has to. What did you say? What's the word you used?
Has to be fully formed.
Fully formed. So when it comes down to, I guess, the initiation of a relationship, or the initiation of I'm attracted to you and I want to get to know you. We talk about this. So for a woman, should she just?
No, here's the question you gotta ask. Because long before we get to the relationship, we all have gotten to the relationship, right? So the question you gotta ask is, before we get here, have you even done the work, right? Are you in a place where you can be fully formed? Have you dealt with the places where the scars are? Do you know? Can you name them? You know what I'm saying? When Jesus comes in contact with Legion in Mark 5, and dude comes running up on him, you know, he says, "Who are you?" And the demon speaks and says, "We are Legion." Right? They announce themselves, right? Because you can't defeat something that you can't name. Right? And so if you can't name it, the pain will always continue. And so in terms of the woman, have I done the work yet to figure out where those places are? That where the scar, that I'm still carrying scars, where those holes are, where I'm still dealing with unresolved stuff. Because if I haven't, I'm gonna take all of that baggage and all of that stuff onto this plane and wonder why I can't check and wonder why I can't get on. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the first part. Second part is you need to ask the man, you know, have you done the work? Do you hear from God? That's a straight up question. What has God said to you? You know, what is going, how do you see yourself? What is your vision? Tell me your destiny. Tell me your purpose. Tell me the stuff you've worked out, right? And if those pieces are dealt together, then we can talk about a relationship.
Right.
We can talk about doing something.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's some pre-work that has to happen long before we get here.
Mm-hmm.
So the question for me, this kind of came up because naturally, just because of the spiritual practices that I've inherited and I facilitate and teach. People, of my circle that I'm in a relationship with, they see themselves as not being necessarily religious, but they see themselves as being spiritual. So their relationship with God looks different in terms of the context and the content that fills, the context. And they may not use the words such as Jesus or God. They may use Allah or Buddha, or they may, study and practice Taoism. But for me, it was like, I hear what you're saying through an open and available filter, which kind of is running like parallel lines along to how I consider my relationship, to God to be. But what happens in terms where two people stand on very similar places with their relationship to God, but the context and the content of how that actually plays out and is communicated is differently? Do you guys see that there needs to be, or it's preferred for there to be a context and a content that's relatable from two different partners whose ideas and philosophies and views of what God is and perhaps what that means to them is different? Do you think that could work? Because a thing for me that's always been difficult, even with going to church or attempting to congregate with the church, is, I felt outcasted because my views and interpretation of God was different. And my relationship with God was different, but I can also see how we're saying the same thing in two different ways. And I was kind of like blacklisted because I decided to be and express myself which felt most comfortable and confident for me. And because it was so different in the way that it was being communicated in comparison to the philosophy and views in which the church was saying, those differences didn't allow us to connect and be in a relationship, and that caused a conflict because it was like, I thought we're all here for the purposes of love and unity. So if the book that you study and which you're embodying through how you communicate is not allowing you to doing that, then to what integrity does the scripture actually really mean? And for me, engaging in relationship, it allowed me to transcend the words and the terminology and philosophies and ideas, and to be able to see people for who they are, not for how they speak and not for how they represent or choose to identify a relationship with God, but actually who they embody and show through their moral values and principles.
Yeah.
So does that ultimately transcend and trump the philosophy, the word, the terminology, or do you feel like in order for two people to connect and even to engage in marriage, they have to share the same views and use the same content with the same context?
That's a phenomenal question. Pastor, you got
Okay. I was waiting. And I want you to.
I would definitely.
Please.
Absolutely.
I am a jazz musician. Middle school, high school, played tenor saxophone at Morgan State University. Full scholarship in music. Had my own jazz band when I was in high school. Played for a bunch of different jazz clubs played with a bunch of different jazz clubs when I was in college. Till craziness happened. But I love jazz. And one of the things that I can tell you in terms of a jazz musician, I can play with anybody in the world, as long as I know what key they are. Tell me what key we at, I'm good. I'll catch the rhythm. We'll get into it. And I think spirituality and Christianity ought to work in that same vein. I think as long as you're in the same key, you're cool. But it's the key that matters. It's the core that matters, right? So what's the core? Matthew 22. Love the Lord your God with all your mind, with all your heart, with all your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the core. That's the key. That's the key. So and Jesus says this, On these two commandments hang all the laws of the prophet. And it's just like, so if we're not doing this, then we're in the same cave. If you can't say, you love God and you love your neighbor and you love yourself, then we can't vibe. And I think a lot of times what happens, and I know I'm going to get in trouble.
Does it matter what the name of God is? Because I've personally had people, say to me, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Or, have you washed your sins with the blood of Jesus? And I say no. And they're like, I can't connect with you because your views is considered to be an entirely different relationship with God that I see. And for that very reason, because of the actual context in which it stands in, those differences outshadow the similarities, which allows us not to even begin to engage in the love in which we're supposed to have for thy neighbor. So, because the actual name and labeling and even the context of the philosophy in which the names come from matter when you're engaging with, a woman and decide to be in marriage.
Yeah, that's a great.
When we talked last about values, I actually have an example. My ex-boyfriend who lives in Europe, who we are great friends now, love him dearly. He recently got married. He's a Christian, but he married a Muslim. And we talk regularly because of our friendship, and we have a fundamental disagreement in the basis of him marrying someone outside of his faith, because ultimately we are what we believe. At the end of the day, we everything that we do is guided from that foundational belief. And so where those clashes can come from are how you are living your life. The basis of a believer living their life, someone who believes in Jesus Christ, comes from God's word. Okay, so he was basically, I shared with him, what I thought about how sometimes in a relationship it's hard to, in terms of raising your children, fundamental practices. The having a relationship with God is the deepest, most intimate thing that anyone can have. And I think sometimes when a different faith is practiced, from your relationship actually with the church, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to be loved by those who are in the church. That's just completely backwards. And that's contradictory to what Jesus actually practiced. But as it pertains to relationships, when everything is guided from what we believe, sometimes there's a lack of harmony because those belief systems are different fundamentally. Do you see what I'm saying?
So I mean, for me, this is kind of like, do the belief systems transcend what we are? Because if the belief is stronger than what we are, which is we were all created in this image, without philosophy, without labels, without titles, then are the beliefs becoming more so barriers than actual bridges for us to connect as a humanity that expresses similarities in different ways due to culture, due to environment, due to upbringing. It's very natural for someone in a different community or different culture to experience God through different terminology or different words. Just like I can say burrito 10 different times in different languages. But if I know that what I'm speaking to is the same, does it matter how I'm actually understanding, because the word is different. And if I don't have the ability to connect with those who think differently, then is there something that I'm not doing within his image that's preventing that connection? And perhaps it's the ego that's seeing and interpreting the context in the scripture under my subjective experience versus the experience in which God has inherited within me.
Yeah, I think I hear exactly what you're saying. I think you're asking about terminology. You're asking about terms, labels. I would say this: in a marriage, when you're talking about relationship and a person you want to spend the rest of your life with, it is my opinion that you need to believe the same thing. Believe the same thing. Because two. This is a scripture, but Amos 3:3. How can two walk together unless they don't agree? I just think it would be extremely difficult. And I used to date a Muslim guy, and I actually started practicing Islam because, you know, that's just what happened. I was around it all the time. I watched him pray. Next thing you know, I'm reading books, and you know, everything that I was taught was like out the door because I wanted to be with him. Does that make sense? And I was doing it only because of that, though. I was doing it because of that. And I was doing it because not only was I just drawn to it, I was drawn to it because I was around it, but I was doing it because I kept seeing myself with this person. I was in college at the time, of course. I didn't know. You know, long-term relationship, that's what I saw happening, and I felt that I needed to conform to that, to be with him. Okay, so that's all you see here, the issues I had, those were issues that I had. You know, I'm changing who I am to be with somebody else. Right. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what could possibly happen. But I think when you talk about a marriage, you should definitely be in agreement before you get married.
That's true.
That's the best way I can say it. Does that make sense?
I would totally
core values.
Yeah, I would totally agree with her in terms of the core value piece. And again, I go back to that whole key piece. If we ain't in the same key,
right?
It's
can't
difficult.
play the music.
Can't play. It's not. It's just not gonna work. I think the rhythm you can develop. I think the composition you can develop. But you gotta be in the same key. And it's those core pieces. Again, Christ says it in Matthew 22, Mark 12, and other places. You know, do you love God? Do you love your neighbor as yourself? Right? That's a whole big thing in terms of what does it mean to love God, what does it mean to love my neighbor, what does it mean to love myself. But if I haven't dealt with those three pieces yet, in terms of God, my self-image, in terms of my neighbor, in terms of my other, in terms of myself, how God formed me, then I'm not fit to be connected to somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And so I go back to this pre-work, but I do want to pause though and just apologize.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
Behalf of every idiot-ass Christian who, I'm sorry, on behalf of every crazy Christian who said stupid stuff, man. We don't always get it right. We don't always get it right. We throw more stones than we give love. And that's not fair, it's not right. It is not who the person of Jesus was.
No.
Like if we was for real reading the scriptures and trying to model ourselves after that guy, we all have a drink and sit back and chill. Because Jesus was a great guy. Just in general, was a good, you know what I'm saying? But we have developed so much religion, so much system, so much stuff, so many barriers, so much pharisaical kind of dogma that it has prevented us from really
reaching the world,
reaching and being effective to others. And I just, it ain't right. It ain't right. So forget all this stuff. I apologize on their behalf, man. That's not a fair representation of who God is, who Christ is, or who we're called to be as Christians. It ain't.
I would also add, you want to speak the same language in a marriage. Oh, that is one of the key things. If my spouse speaks French, I need to learn French. If I speak Spanish, he needs to learn Spanish. That kind of encompasses our whole love language conversation that we have in marriage counseling. I mean, we spend time on that thing because it's something that has to be learned.
But it's a technique. Because watch this.
It's a technique and it's not always real. You do what you have to do.
Because you want to win.
You want peace.
If I want to win the argument with Eboni, then I need to frame my retort in a way in which she understands.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So if I know she's all hearts and giggles and that kind of thing, so when I come to her, I need to come to her with some hearts and giggles. Right? If I come with sword, right, she immediately go into defense mode and she ain't hearing a word I got to say. So if I know she speaks French and I want to win, I need to speak French. If I speak Spanish and she wants to win, she needs to speak Spanish.
How do you get to that place?
That's a great question. You
gotta mess up.
You gotta
do the worst thing.
Don't start there.
You have to disappoint the person.
Oh my God, you don't. I never forget, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we have been married for a little bit, a week or so. Listen.
It isn't such thing.
Listen, and we had one of them big, blow ups. And I was in the shower. I'm like, yeah. And I'm playing back the argument in my head, how I was right and I said right. And then I'm like, why do I feel so bad?
Wow.
Because she's my other half. I can't win and she lose.
Yeah.
Right.
It don't work. If I, you know what I'm saying? She might, and so, but it's something we had to learn. It's something we're still learning. Still, because here's the other piece about language. She might speak French today.
Watch it.
I'm just saying, but next week when the new hairdo and the new this, I'm just saying, language changes. It changes. The longer we're married, the more it changes. And so you have to be willing to be able to, ride this thing, take the hits, get back up, and figure out, okay, that's how we talking now. Okay, that's how we talking. Right? As
you have to be a good listener to figure that out.
Yeah. Or be able to, take some moves. It's
both.
So how do you know the difference between, I guess, how do you understand the difference between compromise and changing yourself to complement your partner? Because it kind of seems like that's like a fine line, where it's like, where is my limit? I understand, I want to put my partner first in the sense I want to be able to communicate in ways in which they understand me, but to what extent am I willing to go before I say, okay, I'm making too many changes where I'm compromising who I am and what's natural for me, and it's not really fitting.
That's a 1 Corinthians 13 thing right there.
Go ahead. You can chime in.
Everything
It's a great
goes
question.
back to those core fundamental values and what unconditional love means. So I know as a single, and I love stuff like this. I eat this up. And I see strong couples like yourselves who love each other sacrificially. And so my example is what Christ did on my behalf. He sacrificed his life for me. And so when I think about my mate and what I should be looking for in an example of unconditional love, it may not be the magnitude of what God would love me, the God of the universe, but it would be parallel in terms of the level of sacrifice. And so I know that I'm being prepared for marriage in the moments of inconvenience, not in those moments of emotional euphoria. You know what I mean? It's when it's the late night hour stuff. It's all those things are parts of the preparation aspect. And 1 Corinthians 13 talks about how love is patient, love is kind, it's not easily angered. And it's like when you are able to go through the worst of the worst with people in that terms of sacrifices, when you really understand the elements of genuine, unwavering love, with your partner.
And I would say, just from personal experience, I have to say I'm a very, I can be influenced very easily. That's just my personality. Like I can fit in with any crowd. I can talk to anybody. You don't speak my language, I figure out how to communicate with you. That's the type of person I am, and I'm also like that in a relationship. However, that can only take you so far. In the beginning of my marriage, I would have to say that I probably suppressed who I was quite a bit. Number one, I had no clue how to be a wife. I had not really seen that modeled for me. So I was trying to figure out how to be me, how to be a wife, then how to be a pastor's wife, then how to be a mom, then how to be your best business person, then how to be it's like all these different parts of your identity that come into play, right? The best thing I can say that I did was to stop, back up, and ask God one more time, show me who you have called me to be. Not even show me who I think I am. Right? Not even remind me who I was 2 years ago. Because even that changes when you get married. I can no longer be the Eboni who goes straight to the mall to ball out as soon as I get paid.
Nope.
But he had the same lifestyle. That Eboni, They're laughing.
That is hilarious.
But what I'm trying to say is that I could only do that for so long. I could only conform to be the Ebony he wanted me to be for about a good year, 365 days. And I just woke up one day miserable. Like miserable. Like what happened to me? Why have I suppressed who I am? And he can probably attest to this. The best thing I could have ever done started being me.
That's so good.
100%.
Because I bet in the middle of it all, I was making him miserable.
Going crazy.
Because I was not. Can I give you all a great example?
Yeah.
We talk about submission a lot, right?
Yeah.
In terms of marriage, right?
Yeah.
So of course, in my mind, I trained myself, I'm gonna be a submissive wife, because I knew how independent I was already, right? So before I got married, I said, okay, I gotta work on being submissive, I gotta be submissive. One day he was like, woman, make a decision. He said that to me. He was like, I need you to make decisions. Because I had trained myself to not make a decision until I had this long, drawn-out conversation. When he's like, I need you to be my queen, not my princess. It's a difference.
Big difference. Big difference.
I did this Bible study called the Princess Syndrome about 3 years ago online. It was amazing. And I talked about how a queen is one who rules in her domain. She understands her authority. She can make decisions on her own. That's not what a princess does, though.
Right.
A princess rules based on her emotions. She has to go check with somebody before she makes a decision. You know what I'm saying? I had to train myself to understand what it meant as a wife to be a queen, to be his queen. And we throw this word queen and king around, you know what I'm saying? But we don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
But I was forced to make decisions, and this man did that in me. Because I didn't realize that I didn't have to be what everybody told me I had to be in terms of how a wife is supposed to act.
That's so good.
And you do what's best for your marriage.
Yeah.
There are some women who may not be able to handle making the crazy decisions that I have to make, day by day. Just as a pastor's wife, like, you can never imagine the types of, decisions that I have to make mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And I had to get out of, this man is not my father.
Yeah.
This man right here is not my daddy. And even though, I didn't have the father that I wanted, I could not try to make him be my father.
Yeah.
And that is part of what I did in the beginning of my marriage. And I didn't know I was doing it, though.
Wow.
I had to check with him for everything. I had to please him. You know what I'm saying? And the whole time, I'm suffering. Like eating away. Because I wasn't just being who I was and making the decisions and walking in my authority as a wife. So, yeah.
So you touched on the role of a man in terms of the word husband. You broke down what that means. So what's the role of a woman in terms of a wife? What does that mean according to the Bible?
That's a great question. I'm gonna answer that. But no, I am. But your other question, though, given what they just said, it's phenomenal. It's this idea of compromise, an idea of submission. I think both of those things we need to just find a trash can and throw in immediately. Because what happens is when you get into a relationship, when you get into a marriage, you are not marrying the other. You're not marrying a person. You're not. You are simply purchasing the ticket that says that you would now ride this ride called life with this individual. Because what will happen is in that ride, both of you all will change several times.
Yeah.
I mean, like yearly changes. As children come,
Life happens.
as folk die, as jobs come, you will. And so, if I'm stuck up on this idea of submission or idea of compromise, I won't give fully into the next term. You know what I'm saying? So I've got to relinquish this idea that I've got a specific place to stay, that she's got a specific place to stand. I gotta just understand that we both in the same car. We going down together, we going up together, we going this. You know what I'm saying? And I just have to be okay with that. Yeah. Because that's what life is gonna do to you.
It is.
My mentor, Francis Wheatley Gates. He's 93 years old. His wife just passed away 2 years ago. They were married 64 years. You can guarantee, at her 64th year, she was not the same woman he met when they were in their 20s. Right. Nor was he the same man. And she, you know what I'm saying? But we go through, and so you have to be willing to say, is this the person
that I can stay on this
roller coaster ride?
That's so good.
Is this the person, given all their character, given their core, the stuff that they have shown me, is this the person that I'm willing to invest in myself with, and my destiny with, for the next 60, 70 some years? And if anything in you says, nah, no, then you need to chill. So that's the first part of the piece. The second part of the piece, in terms of what is a wife, and we'll get some.
Can't wait to get it.
See, 7 years I can sense it already. It's all right here. I thought it was a drag. It's right here. But no, so, and people might not agree with me on this one. But I don't believe. Let me say what happened. Tell you what.
Just tell us what it was.
Tell you what happened. Adam was messed up. Adam wasn't getting it done. And so God said, go to sleep. I'm going to send you an Eve to make sure this stuff is good. Right? And he even calls Eve the helpmate. Right? But how many of y'all have ever moved furniture? Or had to move your house? Right? You had someone come over and help you out, right? They didn't stay in your house. They didn't move in with you. They just helped you. Right? They had their own house to go to. They had their own stuff to do. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just making the point that I don't know that, wives or women necessarily need a husband. I think husbands, men, need a wife. I think men will go crazy without a good woman. I think we will go to war with each other. We just do some sick. We need a woman. We need a good woman.
It's been 2 weeks and you
understand? He understand. He said after last one, he said, I got to get this up. Right? But I don't know that the reverse is often true. And so when the reverse happens, I think it's a God thing. So I think the woman who is called to be a wife is a calling. I think a wife is a calling. I don't think every woman has that.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I gotta just
please.
I have a chapter in my book called "Become a Wife Before You Become a Wife." Right? Based on what he just said, if a woman is in a position where she needs a husband, she is not yet a wife.
Right.
Does that make sense? If you are in a position where you need a husband for whatever you think you need him for, it is my recommendation that you have not gotten to that place of being a wife yet. Because what he just said is that we weren't created to need a husband. They needed a wife. Does that make sense? So if I'm still longing and I'm still wanting, and I can attest, people say it all the time, when you stop wanting it, it comes to you. That's exactly what happened with this man right here. It wasn't until I got to a place where I said, I'm going to live this thing, I'm going to live this life. I'm going to live the best life I can live. And all of a sudden, this guy right here inboxed me on Facebook. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That was good. We got to put that in the book.
That's good stuff. So to be a wife, that's perfect. To be a wife is a calling. I do not think it is for every single woman. I don't. But I think for those who it is for, I think it is a calling. I think part of understanding that calling is to have gone through this process that you can find in her book. Just going seriously, that you can going through this process of understanding myself, my relationship with God, how I hear, find the places where I've been wounded, becoming this fully formed being operable, being in the places where I can be seen and used by God, and then God will bring me to He who is my husband. I think it's a call. I think it's for everybody. Women, what? I think the men, we need it. Lead somebody. Okay. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It's a necessity.
Yes, that's a good question.
So, in real life, right?
In real life.
I'm a visual learner, I'm a practical learner. I need realization, I need real life stuff in order for me to understand it. What do you do in marriage when your vows are tested? Like when, for better or for worse, really happens. When for sickness or poor really comes, or for richer or for poor really comes, or sickness and health really comes. What happens when those things are tested? Like, I don't just say in marriage, but in marriage, in Christianity, what happens when those things are tested as far as your faith is concerned, as far as your relationship is concerned, as far as family is concerned, as far as your decision making is concerned?
Wow.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Ooh,
That's a great question.
to add to his question,
Yes, ma'am.
when you kind of get past that initial honeymoon
Right.
because I think that in this generation, and maybe it happened before, as a single woman, I think the easiest part about being a single woman is being single and not meeting anyone. The hardest part is the distractions and the temptations that you are bombarded with, including married men that haven't been married long, that are distracted. You know what I mean? So vows being tested about faithfulness and things of that nature. How do you get past when they realize the grass is not greener on the other side? You just need to water your own grass.
Yeah.
And,
Water your own grass.
So just to be clear, the question is basically how do you deal with situations where your vows are tested? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Real life, what does Dr. Bell and Pastor do when those vows are tested?
Yeah.
In real life.
Yeah. Listen.
You know what? I'll be honest. For us, we separate, meaning we give each other space because, is that accurate?
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
that's accurate. And I don't mean just like I'm in the other room, right? Like I storm up the stairs and I close the door. I don't mean like, or I get in the car and I drive somewhere. Now we have done it, but I mean you literally give the person space, and that space is emotional space, right? Because you cannot always deal with it at that very second. That's everybody needs a moment to think. Everybody needs a moment to pray. I need to come down off of these emotions. I need to figure out what I do is I need to figure out what God is doing in me in that situation. Because if He has disappointed me, He has done something that, goes against our vision or goes against what we see for ourselves. I always, and this is a place of humility. I used to always blame Him, but now I say, God, what do you want me to do? What are you doing in me? What fruit of the Spirit are you developing in me? Wow. Is it long suffering? Is it self-control? Right? Because self-control outside of marriage is one thing, but self-control inside of marriage? Oh my God. Can you imagine controlling your mouth, controlling your emotions, controlling what you will to do, controlling your own motives? The amount of self-control that you have to have inside of marriage does not compare to this temptation that you're dealing with in singlehood. See, that's a cakewalk, and people don't tell you that. It is compared to this, it is a cakewalk to say, no, I'm not having sex with you. No, I'm not doing this. No, I will not tolerate that. When you get inside of a commitment and a covenant, which is what marriage is, Ain't no just walking away.
And you got kids and stuff.
Imagine the kids are right there. I mean, there's just so much.
And they suck up everything.
Yes, they do.
Everything.
They can sense it.
Kids will wake up.
Kids can sense
They'll wake
it.
up.
Yeah.
No, something's wrong.
Yes.
They'll wake up. They get everything.
Our son is 5 and he knows
Everything.
something's happening.
Everything.
5 years old.
They can tell that.
Yeah.
I want to add to what Ebony just said. Dr. Ebony Bell.
Don't do that. That's why you did that. You make fun to say something.
Dr. Ebony Bell.
Let me get my.
No, but she's 100% right. And this works for us. This may not work for everybody. But we have learned in our marriage that we're really good at fighting.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, we're really good.
Fighting like how?
Arguing and articulating. Our
We're very articulate. Because he's a lawyer at heart.
I think y'all can see already how this can go.
It gets
Y'all
real.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we're real good at articulating our thoughts to our best interests. In moments of extreme trauma. Let me say that. And so what we've learned is there is a difference between friendly fire and taking shots. Big difference.
That's good.
Right, I can just be emotional, and in my emotion, I say some stuff. Right, it just comes out as a natural part of how I'm feeling. That's very different than me talking about where you grew up, or your mother, or your father, or your uncle, or your brother, or what you did. You know what I'm saying? And looking for places to buzz as a way to harm or wound. Right, that is a whole different thing to get over. Right. And when you're married to somebody, it ain't as easy as I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Because you gotta live.
And guess what? After these arguments, you still have to wake up and make decisions together. And immediate, it's like the next day, you have to talk. You can't.
Kids gotta get ready for school.
Everything. I need to know his schedule because am I picking the kids up today?
Right.
We got Bible study. We got church.
Yeah.
So and so, can you call so and so? She's dealing with this. You know, like so ministry couples. That's a different story. That's a whole nother show. Because imagine dealing with your own stuff and dealing with everybody else.
Everybody's stuff. And everybody else's marriage and stuff.
Everybody else's. It's a different, totally different ball game.
But she's 100% right. So you wound your partner, but then you need her to go with the kids. How that work?
Right.
Well, y'all gotta sit down and eat dinner together.
Yeah.
Who gonna cook? You know what I'm saying?
I ain't eating your food tonight.
And so I'm over it. And so what you learn, and I'm just being, you want to practical, I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, exactly.
What you learn is that as a husband, in the moment of trauma, crash, you gotta be thinking long game. You got to be thinking long game. Cause if you think short game and you fight there, you gonna mess up the next 2-3 weeks.
Yep.
You gonna be all tense and wonder how you gonna mess up. Your leg gonna be shut. Next 3 weeks you gonna mess up, right? So you gotta think long. And I found that for me personally, I've gotta do this quick rationalization in my mind. Is this something I need to fight? Something I need to pray over? Or is this something I can just let go?
Yeah.
Right.
And I gotta do that thing within milliseconds while she's talking. Right? The second she says, I feel, or why didn't you? I gotta be in my mind going, oh shoot, do I fight? Right?
I can see him doing it sometimes.
Yeah. I be like, well, just
That's hilarious.
Because if I don't, and I haven't planned out the long game, I'm just reacting. And when a man reacts,
it's damage caused.
it's damaging.
Damage that you cannot sometimes take back.
See, part of the reason why we gotta break away, why we can't come at it at the same moment at the same time, is because a woman is built for the emotional response. She ready. Oh, Taylor, she ready. She got the thesaurus, she got the concordance, she got the dictionary, she ready. She got she know all the facts of when it happened last, what time, date, color thing you had. She lined up.
Stored up.
It's lined up. I'm telling you what I'm telling you. It's lined up. But when we receive that, if we in reactionary mode, we haven't done any of that prep work. Now we just defending stuff, wondering why. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you're bound. And so then we start doing other stuff that's hurtful and harmful.
Yeah,
then we start saying stuff, and we start, reacting in ways that are boisterous and unnecessary.
Or not doing things.
Or not.
That's even worse.
Or shutting people down.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why the best move in the moment, at the long game of straight, the best move is to deal with the piece and back up. Right. But let me say this before you jump. You gotta come back and finish it.
Yeah, and we're
come
still
back.
working on that.
I feel like men don't like doing that.
No, you can't. When you're married, you can't leave it.
Yeah.
But we're still working on that though.
Yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah.
How can you be, talking about marriage in terms of intimacy, you gotta come back to it somewhere because you can't really share
How do you
intimacy if
have
you're
sex?
mad.
Like,
Yes, we
Right.
We don't let that
Like,
I know men might not have problems with it, but I'm like, don't touch me. We're arguing with me, right?
Great question.
I know we as women, like, I'm mad at you, don't touch me. Like, I'm good.
you gotta know that.
We can work around that. We ain't that bad.
But for your wife, come on, sis, break that down.
We ain't that
I know that.
bad. We ain't that bad.
I say this.
So we ain't that bad.
We ain't that bad. We got it.
See, I made a decision before I got married that I would never deny my husband sex.
Right.
Okay. I can count on one hand the times I've denied my husband sex in 6.5 years. Yeah, like honestly,
Maybe that moment.
Oh my gosh, hilarious.
but you know what? Sex brings you back together sometimes.
And that's great.
It breaks the barrier. It will break the barriers sometimes.
Okay.
Other times it's just I'm making a sacrifice. Honestly.
Yeah.
But let me
Okay.
add to that piece. And I'm glad you asked that question because I think a lot of times we don't talk about sex, right? And we
Definitely not at church.
Yeah, we definitely not at church.
But then that's why
But I think it's important. And hear the humor in this, but this is for real. I think it's important that you should have sex as often as possible with your partner, because I think there's stuff specifically for men that is translated in the sexual experience that you would not have gotten through conversation alone, right? And so I think there's a way where we as men we let down. We let go of a barrier, and we express ourselves in a way in which we would not have verbally have we had to just sit and have conversation.
But is that response though?
That's very true.
Yeah.
It does. It does.
Is that response something that is actually emotionally nurturing to your wife?
Like healthy, you mean? Like
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like if we are giving of ourselves and we're sacrificing and prepared to never deny our husbands, in turn, does that mean you're going to love us and hear us? You know what I mean?
I see what you mean. Like, am I giving him this to get something from him? Kind of like that.
Well, I think sometimes men struggle to understand. We understand that men have needs, and as a wife, you want to meet those needs. But we as women, we have emotional needs as well. And so, at what point do we get our needs met?
They might think it's resolved.
Right.
Because
Because you
have
have
sex
yourself.
and think, okay, we're good. It's resolved.
See, but we never think that.
Yeah,
we
no.
never, ever
Right.
think that. And I think that there is just an intimacy that you have with your spouse, he knows, even if we need to finish a conversation, that doesn't mean I'm not going to have sex with him.
Okay.
But he knows that we need to finish the conversation. Is that accurate?
True.
And it might not happen tomorrow. It might happen in 2 weeks. Again, when we give each other space. And we both heard from God and we come back and have the conversation. Because again, I believe that everything that happens within your marriage, it is building something. It is molding you or molding your spouse. Like there's something that's taking place in the midst of this trial. Something's taking place in the midst of this struggle. Something is being made in me in the midst of this thing. There's an attribute or quality within me that needs to be sharpened. There's patience that needs to be go to the next level because God's going to show you something or give you something 3 months from now. And if you haven't worked on this, in this season, then when I hit y'all with what's about to come, you're not going to be ready. Does that make sense? So everything that happens between us, it's building us for something else down the road.
That's good.
Like all the stuff we've been through in ministry so far. For example, we don't know what's next. We don't know the next season. But we know that everything we're going through now is for a purpose. It's not just to tear us apart. It's absolutely not to tear us apart. That doesn't make sense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's not what marriage is.
Right.
But it's to build you and prepare you for something else in the future. And I think we look at it like that. And if you don't, you're going to stay in the moment. You're not going to remember the vision.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you're going to take it personal and be wounded, walk around wounded.
You mentioned the word intimacy.
Yes.
You speak on the difference between sex and intimacy and marriage. If there is a difference.
That's good.
Great question. I cannot wait to hear you.
You want to go first? You go first. You go first. Come on.
I think we care more.
Okay. I do think there's a big difference. And I think that as a wife, I'm okay with either. Honestly. I am okay with there are times where there's going to be some meaning in this thing. And there are times where we just getting it in.
Right.
And
I'm okay. When she said get it, his eyes just lit up like.
But that's real. But that may not be a common thing that many women will say. But I am okay with both. And I don't ever want it to be fake, whatever it is.
Right.
I want it to be organic. Because, oh my God, look at what the Lord did in our marriage. And oh my God, let's express that. And those words may not happen. But you both know, like, something amazing happened. We gotta celebrate this thing.
Yeah.
And you might celebrate that in a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was wonderful. That was an excellent.
But doesn't that go back to the love languages as well? Like if you find that satisfaction in your marriage and intimacy through having sex, but say if another person, they feel like quality time is their way of having intimacy.
I was gonna say that. I think that and again, this is just compartmentalization. As a male, I think we can very easily separate the sexual act from intimacy. I think it takes great, maturity to tie the two together.
It does. Yeah. It takes a lot of time.
Because we can very easily do that. When I think of intimacy, I'll never forget when Eboni was pregnant with our second son, David. We had a lot of stuff going on. We had just moved to a new building. We were looking for positions. We were figuring money stuff out. She was in the last year of her doctorate program. I was in the third year of my doctorate program. We just had a lot of stuff. And we were just, we were cats and dogs in it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it just got to a point where we had pulled really back to just silence. But we started to feed the kids. We still had kids. We still had Ronald in the house. And so we would come in the kitchen and we would just make dinner together.
And not talk.
Wow.
But it was so freaking intimate.
Peace.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
We would, we'd be doing spices, we'd figuring stuff out, and that was our way of just like literally making love in the kitchen.
That's so good.
Right? Stuff would just dissolve while we're trying to figure out, who, and that just that was our way of being intimate.
And I'm telling you, that is why you have to be just in tune with your spouse.
Yeah.
Like that situation he just described had to happen like 3 or 4 times until we figured out, oh my God, we didn't argue. Or oh my God, like that was so freeing, it was so peaceful. And we verbalized that. So then we made an effort to do it more often. And
we just make the meal, sit in the kitchen, eat together.
And now you can talk about what was going on.
And then we just pass it.
Yeah.
You know,
Alright, this is like switching gears a little bit, but it's not really spoken about, but I see it play a huge factor in successful and not successful marriages. How do you guys handle your finances? Is it what's yours is mine, what's mine is yours? And being that, you know, you have an entrepreneurial spirit, you know, when do you know to support your partner's entrepreneurial goals and vision, and practically it not making sense for the household and that possibly being a burden of that other spouse that has to pick up, because now it's not I can just go on a limb and just
and
do
be
as I
risky
please,
with my money,
because now, you know, we have a household, we have a marriage that we're trying to keep intact, and the finances really aren't spoken about. But you know, once you get into marriage, there's contracts. There's all different ways in which the money is being distributed. Something were to happen,
it's not consistent sometimes.
So how do you guys handle that whole thing?
Well, you want to do?
Go ahead.
Oh, so I was gonna say we started off. One of his best friends told his best friend on his the night before the wedding told him that he and his wife had they only had one account, so they had all their money in one account, and they saved what, like 12,000, 20,000, something like that. So he heard that and he came back to me with that, you know what I'm saying, and was like, all our money in one account.
And you started those stats inside too.
True story. So for the first, what, 3 years or so? 4 years?
Less than that.
No, we did it for like 4 years. It didn't work, but we did it. So we did it based on what somebody else told us to do.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, so then after that, we decided that it would be better for him to have his account and for me to have my account. And so currently today, that is the situation. Business-wise, okay, so both of us are entrepreneurial, right? He was looking at me.
I'm listening.
He's like, I can't wait.
Go ahead and say it. Go ahead. You drove together. I want to know.
You gotta go back home and get the Lord together. Woo! Help me, Jesus, on this one. So what we ended up doing, because he makes more money than we currently, so what we did was he pays all the big stuff, I pay all the little stuff. Is that accurate? That's what's supposed to happen.
That's that. Yeah, that's that.
So you guys both allow him to do it.
And we have a rule, which we rarely follow. Rarely. That if you're going to buy something that costs more than $35. 35?
We don't follow.
Wow.
You don't follow?
That's hard to follow.
That was the rule. That was the
definitely not in full form.
You know what? Let's get this out of full form. Live on the show. We're about to do something.
700?
Listen, live on the show. We're about to make a new rule. If we spend more,
Are we increasing it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, look.
I'm waiting. Cause look, my attorneys are present. I'm waiting.
oh, I got
We
it.
talking about
My counsel is here.
Specifically for Jeep Wrangler stuff. Specifically for Jeep Wrangler.
Come on now.
My God.
That's my vehicle, man. I love my Jeep.
That's his toy.
It's
He
like
just
God,
buys Wranglers.
wife.
That is
I'm
hilarious.
like, but baby, you gotta pay daycare.
God, wife, Jeep.
No, seriously, I think that we should make a new rule because we haven't changed the rules since day one.
No.
If we're gonna spend more than $100, we should tell that person.
I think that's good. I think that's
$100
good.
is good.
I think $100
That's
is
not
good.
bad.
No. May I confirm for a second, please?
Is it like
Y'all no, like okay,
like in a day?
no, like on one purchase.
Yeah.
Like one purchase.
Okay.
I'm trying to give you
Talk
something.
about the 100. But do I get the show?
I was like,
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
you gotta tell how you just prove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I just can't randomly go out and buy
Anything that's gonna impact
What's
your
being
budget.
spent on?
because it will impact our budget.
Yeah.
So that's a good number.
But that's because that's where we are now.
We cool.
You know, in a few years.
They don't want your industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
You only got 2 more seconds.
We ready. We got
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely before. Yeah.
All right,
You ready? So my counselor and I have conferred, and we like to counter your offer. And
Oh my God.
what we suggest.
Some provisions.
Yeah, it's just a couple provisions. On page 3.
You want to record this?
Yeah.
I document this.
We're good with the 100.
Okay, go with the
But we need you to confer before you spend it that you're about to spend $100+. So we didn't know what you're gonna buy.
Do some consultation.
Before you buy it with the 100.
By
Don't just
confer, you mean give notice or ask for?
give notice and ask for permission.
And ask for permission. Do you have to ask me for permission?
Wait.
Huh?
I think both people deserve to know what it's going to be spent on.
But he's not going to tell me what
There has to be consultation, and there has to be an agreement that what you're spending your money on is.
You gotta get the okay.
You don't want to spend.
That's gonna be a total.
Are you going to get the okay from me? This is what I'm trying to say.
If she says boots, he's not gonna care about that.
I may say no.
Oh my god.
But why?
Do I have that power?
Because I get the
Because
versus
I know some stuff.
$100.
What is the audience saying? What is the audience saying?
$75.
They said 75.
First people say
It's a
you
first
stay
one.
at 35.
Stay
And then some people say $75.
I'm trying to get this bread.
Unless you get from your spouse, then you keep it secret.
Unless they gift.
I'm getting scared.
This is our personal.
But do y'all see this? This is real though. I mean, y'all have to
Is emotional. Yeah, like I mean, like stuff that you just want, like for the moment, because a lot of times, like if it's gonna something, like for me, like I'll buy something that's $100 and then I have to stop it, but buy something that's $100 plus, and it's because I just saw it and I wanted it and then I got it.
an emotional.
Like some stuff. I mean, I got shoes that was. I gave away 9 pairs of shoes that I just never. I wore once and I like never wore them again.
See, yeah, we
9 pairs.
don't.
Like,
That's why you should enjoy being single. Because we do not have that situation in
But
our
I'm saying, like,
Not yet.
as an example, like you want to make sure that whatever you're purchasing, like with a wife or a husband, that you do consult with your significant other, because at the end of the day, when you're checking finances as a married couple, at the end of the day, you're like, well, what happened here? Because if y'all are both spending $100 a piece, like
That's
without
$200
consulting,
out the door.
$200 out the door, without consulting with each other, and then you come back together at the table to talk about your finances, and then there's nothing there.
That's so
It's like, well,
bad.
what happened? You know what I mean? And then we never had a conversation
That's
about
why I
what was
think
being spent.
before.
Because sometimes
Before
you might be able to spend
I
100.
just don't think he's gonna do that. That's all I'm trying to do.
And then you have full disclosure in terms of, because I know I've heard people say that, you know, sometimes people keep separate accounts that they don't tell their spouse about. And
Oh,
everybody
yeah, no, that's
kind of
it.
going back to
Do y'all do that?
the two becoming one, and then you not being your own. And so having that mindset, because I know sometimes it's hard in marriage, you know, you're so used to being independent, especially when you get older, because I'm in my 30s. You know what I mean? You're so used to always being independent, always making your own decisions.
Yeah, you ain't shut in there.
And escaping that mindset that you're not your own anymore.
Can we talk about that for a second? I have
Yes.
an issue with consideration. I really do. I have an issue with being considerate with for other people. It's hard to say. I have an issue with being considerate. in
Elaborate, like, give us an
relationships.
example.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like I think like when it comes to like having to consult with somebody or having to get permission or having to. Like I have an issue. I have an issue with having to have that happen. I just want to. I think because I am single, like I just want to be able to do or move how I want to move or be where I want to be. Like whenever I want to do these things.
But is it really an ask permission? Like consulting is different. Like, hey, hon, like I'm
It's the wording.
Yeah. Let me speak to this though, because I think this is a great jump, and it's still the same as well. Here's how and why the considerate piece will change. The considerate piece will change the first time you recognize that your actions have greater consequence on your spouse and your children and everyone.
So it's not just, it's a bigger picture. It's a bigger picture about you anymore.
Right.
My God, that's some sacrifice.
The first time you see that whatever you decided, whatever you chose, just reverberated through your whole household.
Yeah. It was like a domino effect.
Yeah, and it just and it happens. And so what you learn is that you're no longer yourself. You are the representative of the house.
Wow.
You are
Preaching,
you,
sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Send your offerings.
Please sit down. When you get that, it changes everything. Second thing is this, man. I told you, Adam went to sleep.
Yeah.
And when he woke up, God presented Eve. Right? Well, whatever God gives and presents is a gift. And so when I recognize that what God has given me is a gift, and God gave me the gift, first thing I realized that it wasn't mine to start with. I didn't give myself the gift. God gave me the gift. Meaning Eve was really God. You understand? And so I just get to be the holder of the gift.
The steward.
The steward of the gift. The husband of the gift. You know what I'm saying? And so when I get that I'm responsible as a husband, as a steward, as the holder, that changes how I treat the thing I'm holding. Right? So now I'm treating it with care. It's like say Obama said, come ride Air Force One. That ain't your plane. So when you get on, you treat it a little different. You know what I'm saying? You hold it at a different level of respect. That's the same thing God does when He presents the wife to the man. Right? It's a different level of understanding that I gotta honor this thing, and that whatever I do has immediate consequences.
Is that something that I can work on? Like, is that something
without being in a relationship?
How do I work on that? Is that something that I can work on? Because I feel like if I'm gonna pray for a wife, or if that's something that I want to move into as far as marriage is concerned, and like we spoke about, you have to be prepared before that comes. I know that's the issue that I have. Like, how do I work on my consideration issue or my that is?
So I'm sure you've heard the scripture that says the greatest man among you is the servant. Right. And I touch on that in my book. You know, you become a wife before you become a wife. In other words, if I can find myself serving the Lord with all of my heart, with all of my being, with all of who I am, then I would be ready to translate that into marriage.
Okay.
Because when I serve my husband, I'm serving God. I think we talked about that last time.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is really servanthood. It doesn't sound like it to you, but you really can do it, and you are doing it. It's just applying that same principle to that flaw.
Okay.
So apply the principle of servanthood to that area of your life, because you know how to serve. You know what it is to be a servant. Does that make sense?
And I think the question that's coming from me is because it's like, in terms of business, you know, I can understand my why, right?
Okay.
I can incentivize compromise. I can incentivize being considerate. I can incentivize being ambitious, because I know once I jump through this hurdle, once I get through this challenge or this obstacle, I know the other end of that is going to be a byproduct, whether it's financial, whether it's this, right? But now I can't really take what I've learned through the lessons that I've applied in terms of business into relationship, because that's a path unknown. You know, for the most part, I know I can have a good amount of control over what I can do and how much will I can exercise to get what I want in terms of business. But now we bring it another person in this situation, which adds an entirely different dynamic to how decisions are made and how the byproduct is considered to be manifested, right? So in terms of like a marriage, right? How do you both understand and develop your why? Like, how do you find the incentive for the compromise, for being considerate, for getting through the challenges? And do you guys have that conversation? Is that understood, like, to get you through it? Do you know why it's even important or worth, you know, going through the work and continue to fight and not just giving in and finding something easier or something like that?
One word, vision. That was such a powerful question you just asked, because in marriage, I have a vision for my life that I believe God gave me. He has a vision for his life that he believes God gave him. And then guess what? There is a whole separate vision. And that is the vision for the marriage. And that is the why. And so every decision that we make, we have to go back to the vision. It's just like in business. Is this investment, is this event that I'm about to do, is this contract that I'm about to get, is it going to be just for the moment? Is it going to benefit me just today financially? Or is this going to be a decision I make that's going to benefit my business in 10 years? Right? Like, is this connection one that is going to feel good, look good on social media? Or is it going to produce fruit? So every decision that we make, we have to ask ourselves, is this going to produce fruit for my family? Is this going to produce fruit for God's kingdom? It's even bigger than just the household. It's how is this decision serving God? Does this point back to what God says in his word? Does this point back to the integrity and the character that God is requiring of me? Does that make sense? So it's even bigger than me. It's bigger than him. It's even bigger than us. And it's about who we're supposed to connect with and impact in the world. And that's what I mean when I say God's kingdom. I mean the people that God has called me to, those students that you go see at the elementary school. You know what I mean? You're making decisions, and I guess you call this prophesying, but you're making decisions now that are going to impact your business in 20 years. It's the same thing in marriage. We got to make these financial changes, these financial decisions, because we want to be in a house in Virginia in 20 years. And we want it to be paid off. So it's beyond just this for the moment stuff. And so that's something else you can think about.
And I think the most fearful part, and I guess I'll speak for myself, and a little bit I'm picking on what he's saying. The most fearful part for us men is relinquishing that control that we're so used to exercising when we're independent and trusting in that. Now with a co-pilot, we're going to accelerate this process. We're going to get and receive that byproduct equally, collectively, and more abundantly than I can ever do alone. Because again, it's a path unknown. Like, this is a place I've never been. This is a place I've never really exercised my way in collaboration and partnership. So how do I take a leap and trust in someone to kind of really just like to do what I've been doing, but now as a collective? Did you guys ever have that point where it was like that came up and it was like, I don't know if I can trust you enough with my vision and with our vision?
I think that's a great question. I think that part of knowing the why is first knowing the what. Right? So if I know what I am, and I know what she is, if I know what those substances are, what those elements are, then I know that regardless of where you put us, this is going to produce. If I know what kind of seed she's carrying, kind of seed I'm carrying, then regardless of where you put us, I know what's bound to happen with the right fertilization, the right concept. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why this first work, this core work of getting to know yourself, of getting to be the husband, of getting to be the wife, of figuring those pieces out is so important. Because when you come into the relationship, I'm able to trust my spouse because I understand their what and I understand my what. If I got that piece covered, we can deal with the why. Because the reality is the why is going to change depending on the season, the time, and what's going on. Ebony, this is all things women, right? And that is amazing, right? 10 years from now, this will probably be a major network on TV. And that's amazing.
Come on, speak that, husband.
You know what I'm saying? No,
that's what
I'm just saying though.
Yes.
Right? So from that to schools to all kinds of right. And so it's gonna change. It's gonna morph, it's gonna move. And it ain't who I am. Right? It ain't. It's completely who she is. And so I got to be able to honor the why in her. And the only way I can honor her why is because I know her what.
Yes.
I know what God created inside of her. I know God has called her to young women. I know God has called her to be the creator. I know God has called her to transmit that, to translate that, to teach that, to heal, right? And so when I get that, that gives me confidence to release having to have authority over the next move.
That's a level of trust.
Yeah.
And wow, everything you said was just so powerful. What I was going to say, for us, if we are not able to articulate who we are imagine if you can't articulate who you are to your spouse. And a question came up, is it okay if you don't know your purpose before you get married? And can your partner help you find your purpose? Something like that. It can go both ways. But I advise anybody to search out their purpose as much as they possibly can. And not just be working a job and not having a vision. Before you get married, because if you cannot articulate that, it's going to be very difficult for your spouse to accept that, to support that, because they don't even know what they're supporting. They don't know what they're supporting. And it's like it's a dance back and forth. It's a dance back and forth. It's season to season. I never wanted to be married to a pastor. I would say that to anybody. This is the last thing I wanted. But that was my husband's destiny. That was his purpose in this season. In 10 years, who knows what we'll be doing? I don't know. But that was a sacrifice that I had to, that was just part of what I married into. Does that make sense? But he told me, I knew he was in ministry before we got married. So I signed up for that. Do you know what I'm saying? So in the midst of trying to be that, then I'm also trying to pursue my purpose. I married into it.
So can we, right there, how important is it to have that conversation of where do I see myself going, and if we're going to work together before we even get to the marriage part?
Extremely.
You know what I mean? Like, what's the vision for us together before we even reach the ring on my finger? Because if I can't compliment your vision and encourage you, then we don't need to get that far. But in this day and age, it's like, oh my gosh, we're not going with the flow, we're moving too fast.
But let me say one more thing, because what I just said, it's loaded, and I don't have enough time to get into what I just said. But what I'm trying to say is that even though it was not something that I wanted to do, it was my job to figure out how to be me in that. I'm not saying that you're going to change who you are, or you're going to accept things that you don't want to do, and it's going to be to the detriment of your destiny. See, that would have been my choice. It would have been my choice to say, because I married into this, then all my stuff goes to the back burner. That would have been my choice to say that. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that is the reason why you have to, and I was doing it in the beginning. And I told you, I woke up miserable one day, and I said, I cannot do this. I cannot just be that. It is not who I am. Not only that, I can't even be effective to the people around me, because I'm stifling who I am to try to be what they say I'm supposed to be. Other first ladies, other people. My ministry, honestly, is outside of the church. It's not, I don't function well in the four walls of the church. It is just not who I am. That's why they can tell you, I'm always inviting them out. I'm always taking place. I'm always saying, let's go. I am an evangelist at heart. My husband is a pastor. It's different. I'm not a pastor, and I know that. Not that I can't operate in that role, but what I'm saying is, it is your decision in a marriage. If you decide to give up what God, you can't do that. Give up what God called you to do and what He called you to be, just to fit in with what your spouse is doing. It is supposed to be in tandem. It should be so. You should be in such agreement that when I'm out doing my thing, he's at home with the boys. When he's out doing his thing, I'm at home with the boys. That takes communication. He has to know what I'm intending. I have to know what he's intending. That is why I say to people all the time, when you get married, you're not just marrying one person for the rest of your life. That person is going to change so many times. Their mission is going to change. Do you all understand that marriage is really serious? Everything that we're saying to you all is real.
I know it's serious. I think we know that.
But to the other piece of your point, how do you know when it's too much to give up front? That's kind of what I hear you
Okay,
saying.
yeah, that's a good question.
That's kind of what I hear you saying. You will never know if a basket can hold your eggs unless you put all your eggs in the basket.
Right.
People who say, "Well, I would just put half my eggs in one basket, the other half in another basket," right? That's crazy. Put all your eggs in one basket and see can the basket hold your eggs. And if it can't, then you know, and you can move on. We hold back pieces of our personality, pieces of our destiny and purpose from people who we want to then some kind of way interview to be partners for the rest of our lives, and wonder why,
Are miserable when you get married.
Yeah, you ought to be all of your crazy up front and see how they respond.
Where did you take me on our first week? For example, where did you take me on our first date weekend? You took me to a church.
We went to church. Like 3 different services?
No, but I needed to see that. I needed to see him in that role.
Yeah.
Because I would have automatically been like, I absolutely can't do this.
It was a jazz.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I was playing sax and somebody was.
I mean, yeah, he was playing saxophone, but he took me to a church.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I knew what I was signing up for.
What were you thinking in that?
I was like, wow, he's like an amazing leader.
That's good.
Yeah, like I saw qualities in him that I wouldn't see sitting at, they laughing, sitting at a, sitting in front of him. We did go to dinner and stuff, but I'm saying, you need, here's the thing, you need to see the person in their element.
Absolutely.
See the person in their element. It's not just dating. It's not just we're going to the movies, we're going to the park, we're going to wherever. No, see them in their element.
Interact with their family, friends.
See them with their family, how they treat their mom, all that stuff. It's in the book, y'all.
So, question. So, you talked about seeing the characteristics of a person
Yes.
before.
As
What
many as
is
you
kind
can.
of like that balance where, I don't know how to express it, like you see some things but you don't see everything. Like you knew there was areas you had to grow in after you got married.
Of course.
So in some areas, like this person may not know how to fight well. Like we argue well, and they sometimes dig. Maybe they have to learn that. When do you kind of figure out where this person can grow in and when they can and it's too much? You know what I mean?
That's in the book too. The non-negotiable.
I was going to say the deal breaker. The deal breaker. Deal breaker. Some of the deal breaker.
You gotta have
Temper.
Yeah.
Look at the temper.
Yeah.
Because you can see down the line that could turn into something else. You can't ignore those things. And I think a lot of people ignore it, and then 5 years later they end up in a miserable place and they get divorced when they knew the whole time who this person was. But because you want to be with somebody so bad, you put up with it. The next thing you know, the person can't stop drinking or whatever the case may be. But you knew they were drinking heavy when you met them. You cannot ignore that. And you have to make a decision, is this something that I see? Again, it's vision. Can this, I mean, of course it can change. I mean, everybody can change. But you have to make a conscious decision, is this something I can deal with or not? And we ignored the viewers.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes. Okay, go ahead.
Let me just jump real quick. Here's the one question you gotta ask. I think this will save y'all on every dating relationship you ever go in. The rest of you this is it right here.
I got high expectations.
Yeah, but listen. Right here. If this was my child, would this behavior be acceptable?
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah, that's it.
If this was my child.
Would this be? And number 2, if this person were around all the folk I elevate, all the griots in my life, the mamas and the daddies and the uncles, could they sit in the same room and be accepted? Or would they be, you know what I'm saying? You ask yourself those 2 questions, that will immediately eliminate 90% of the folk you messing with.
Right.
Immediately.
Answer it honestly, right?
Yeah, just be honest.
What was your question?
My question is going back to the sex conversation because we kind of skipped through it. But I know, Lady Eboni, you were celibate for like 5 years before you met Pastor Ron. Pastor Ron, you a couple months you were back.
Yeah, no, 3 years, man.
You put it in the book.
1/3 of the year.
That's all you gotta say.
30% of 365
because I believe one of them is just developing that discipline. So in regards to discipline, do you still face temptations now that you're married, and if so, how do you deal with it? So it's a two-part question.
Okay, so the first part is
Is
what's
the benefits of
Are there?
celibacy?
of
Are
marriage?
there? No, celibacy
in marriage?
Yeah.
No, not celibacy in marriage.
No.
Before you
Oh, do you get any benefits
Yeah.
from being? That's a really good question, and I would say you don't.
Yeah.
So the only reason we don't have sex is because God tells us not to?
No. I don't think so. I mean, this is a human answer I'm about to give you. This is not First Lady. This is not Bible. This is a human answer. The human answer is, y'all heard this already. When you have sex with someone, it is physical, but we are expecting something emotional back.
We as in women? Or people?
Women.
Not all.
Okay, maybe not all, but you're expecting something back. Or you may be that woman that just likes to have sex. I mean, I don't want to take that from anybody.
Yeah, I would respond. Okay.
I'm saying that is the danger, I would say, in doing it. It's because you're giving something away and you're expecting something back. That is extremely dangerous, and it just may not come back to you.
Yeah, I would say for me it was financial.
Oh God, he's about to tell you about his $1 million seat. We have 2 minutes left in the show. He's about to tell you about his $1 million seed.
I got this revelation.
Yeah, a minute.
My man to run through this thing. So I was struggling with celibacy, non-celibacy. Yeah, I was getting away. And I got the revelation. Count the cost. Is this person who you're about to, go into, is she worth 18 years of your life? What you make 40 shots ago? I'm for real. So we're talking about, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a year, right? Right. Now I'm about to jeopardize the next 18 years of 80, 90 grand making off this one night experience. Is she worth it?
Because it could happen.
One of my mentors actually told me as well, sometimes when sex enters a premarital relationship, the relationship ceases to grow because that oftentimes becomes the focus of the relationship, blinding you to the things you need to see.
It could.
I think that's if you're like.
It could. Yeah.
I think that's if you're like controlled by your senses. If you solely rely on your senses and you're solely making choices from the place of your senses, then you're going to be bound to them. But I think that's when you need to have that relationship with the higher, with God, with a calling, with an answer that can be able to provide you with like insight into making choices that are solely dependent on.
I think every decision, including that, is sowing into my marriage. Do you know what I mean? Every decision I make prior to is creating what I want when I'm actually married.
Yeah, my thing was that it was knowing that God had purpose for me, I had destiny, I had value, God had income that was going to be coming in, and I'm not willing to jeopardize my destiny and what's coming in for this one experience.
Yeah.
And for me, it was purification for me. I'm giving you my personal reason why I did it. It was because God said don't do it, but I knew that before and I was doing it. It was beyond that. It was a personal decision, and I really wanted to come to a place of purity because I knew I was going to be married one day, and I wanted my husband to have me in a pure way. I mean, psychologically, you know what I mean? You have to have that space, and that cleansing, and spiritual as well. But so that's the reason why I did it. I think people have different reasons why they become celibate. And it's not always just because the Bible says it's not always that. Just being real, it's not. You have to figure out why you're doing it. And if you don't know why you're doing it, it's not going to last. And that was my problem. That was my problem at first. I didn't know why I was doing it. It didn't make sense to me. It wasn't until I understood that I wanted to be purified. And people say born again virgin and all that stuff. I didn't take it that far. But I mean, I'm a person that enjoyed sex outside of marriage. But it was, I wanted to purify myself and get myself ready, for my husband. And that's what I did.
Second part of the question.
Are you tempted still in marriage?
Yeah, right.
The show is officially over. 11:01. No, I mean you can answer the question.
Yeah, no, I think we're still human. I think we both would be lying to say that we don't think that others are attractive physically. I think it's human nature to see someone and go, ooh, that's just a reality. I think that's very different than being tempted. To say that I'm tempted says that I'm willing to disvalue this. I'm willing to bargain with this. I'm willing to bet against this in order to fulfill that experience. And I've never done that.
I never got that far.
Yeah,
That's great.
nothing would ever be worth putting this. You know what I'm saying?
And when your kids
Yeah, man, you got
It's levels.
and destiny. Yeah, it's too much wrapped in this. To squander this for that. No.
I also know that I'm accountable to God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I am accountable to him. Forget him. I'm accountable to my daddy, God.
That's what goes back to Pastor Ron, what you're saying. I mean, I know, speaking for single women who are Christian, having someone and trusting God to bring someone who is spiritually mature, and having that, I think when you really look at the culture and the landscape of dating today, a lot of Christian women are settling just because the dude might know a couple scriptures and go to church once a quarter. You know what I'm saying? It's not even about the religious stuff. It's really having that relationship. There's not a lot of, you don't always meet men that have that type of revelation. You know what I mean? And have that insight spiritually.
That's why
that can support somebody's vision and their gifts and even understand what that means. So what do we do?
I think it is equal on both sides. Though. I feel like there's some females who are not ready.
There's so many godly
We
women out
have to get to that equal part because
we gonna have an after party.
Yeah.
But, do we have any outstanding comments? I don't want to ignore the audience.
No, there wasn't really.
They just commented.
On my phone, yeah, they just been commenting.
Okay.
Y'all been going.
Well, we will do our best to go back and
It wasn't nothing.
and look at your comments and answer as many questions as we possibly can. But it is a late hour and we want to respect your time. It's 11 o'clock. This has been a great discussion, and I think more of this needs to just happen, especially with guys. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes.
I think, the ladies, we had the singles ministries, and we had all the books and the waiting until my waiting and all that stuff. But I don't know that the men have enough conversation about this. No, I don't.
not with women. We
Oh,
have it
not
amongst
with women.
ourselves.
But do you have it to this level? Like, can you come to these conclusions amongst yourselves?
No.
This is what I'm saying to you. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying that you all need mentorship and people in your lives to tell you, be real with you about this stuff.
But it's very rare as men that we find women that we can be that open with without it being an intimate
Oh, that's the after party.
relationship.
That's the after
You know what I'm
party.
saying?
Yeah,
Like,
you don't get it.
you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't get this type of information from a woman unless I'm engaged with her on that level that she's expecting me to. Because for her to be that open, for her to express her truth in that matter to me, I need to be giving her or showing her some of that emotion.
That
some
goes
of those
both ways
feelings.
though.
Yeah.
I've shown that to men and they're like, oh my gosh, you are my wife. I'm like, no, we're just
Wow. That's hilarious.
Well, guys, this has been season 2. Oh, I'm gonna cry. Season 2 is over. Wow. Over, guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Listen, do us a favor and please share the video with someone that you love, someone who can be impacted by this wisdom and this knowledge. Thank you for all the hearts. Thank you all so much for tuning in. All of the episodes are up on YouTube. Please make sure you subscribe to All Things Women Talk Show. Follow us on Instagram, All Things Women TV. We're going to be posting clips, even though we're not going to have live shows every Monday. But we'll be back soon with another season, and I love you guys. Good night. Woo-hoo.